those of you who don't know, I followed Brad for a long time. He was even back in 2005, I think he was helping me on the attraction forums, and this was before, the game came out. This was before where this whole thing just became mainstream. And I've read your bio as well. You've always been a natural, and you've kind of been
No,
developing your own
no,
thing.
that's not really right. Um, I never really had much natural skill at this. I learned from guys who were naturals, but myself, I had like horrible experiences with women before I started working on my skill set. So, I was never a natural. I'm still not a natural, and if I don't work on my game and keep it going, it gets bad and crappy again.
That's good to
I'm
hear.
Yeah, I'm purely like a learned technique guy, and obviously learned inner game and learned everything, but I haven't built my game on natural skill at all.
If I'm not mistaken, because I remember reading this somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had started learning from naturals before you actually even heard about the seduction community, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I had no idea the seduction community was around because I started learning. I guess it was like 2003, 2004. And back then, like you said, the game wasn't out, and there was really nobody teaching this. So I was just going and doing it by trial and error. I would just go out every day and try different things to pick up women, and I met these naturals as well, and they had really good techniques. So when I got good, I started teaching, and it wasn't really like a planned thing that I was going to become a teacher or a guru. I just was doing it because I had lost my job and I just needed to kind of think of something quick, and it was just a experiment. I had been reading self-help books for 10 years by that point, so I knew a lot about self-help. And I had met some self-help gurus, so I was familiar with the self-help scene, although not the seduction scene. So I started doing it, and it really took off. But I was as surprised as anyone. Um, when I started teaching, the students were completely new to this stuff. They weren't from the seduction community either. And the seduction community slowly started to find out about me, and they kind of started coming to my class. And after a few months, since after they found me, there was nobody else but them because they kind of just took it over, and they have their own way that they like to learn, which has a lot to do with, as your site says, PUA Lingo. And so I had to translate all the things I had learned from naturals and all the things I had learned by my own trial and error. I had to translate those things into PUA Lingo, which I was able to do pretty easily because the lingo does make things a bit more efficient and easier to understand.
That's great. Now, are all your students now, are they a mixture of not guys who haven't heard about it, or are most of them now guys from the community?
Right now, I mostly get guys from the community. Get a few that aren't, but I mean, I could always go back to teaching the non-community guys, but the community guys are pretty cool to teach because they're really motivated, and they're serious, and they just really want to go out there and practice this stuff. And
Right.
I like teaching those guys. They really got a good attitude.
This is just maybe my personal opinion, but I um I learn a lot of game from quote unquote what Fuji would say synthetics. Those are guys who was never good with social skills and kind of picked it up while being in the seduction community.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. And then
Honestly,
I have another group of friends who are just naturally good, but they don't get off, no pun intended, from actually analyzing what they do. They're just naturally good around people. And I watch them too, but sometimes they can't break it down, but they're much better than some of the PUAs I've seen. Do you have the same experience with natural guys? Have you learned more from them than pickup artists or vice versa?
yeah, I've learned everything that I know from my own experience and from the naturals. Yeah, I've never seen anybody in the PUA community who's as good as the naturals I learned from. Not even close. So I haven't really tried to pick up too much stuff from the community because I feel like I have my knowledge base of like my own real experience and the stuff I learned from naturals, and I want to keep that very pristine because I know all that stuff works, um, and I know where it came from, and it works for me. So, the PUA stuff I think is really cool for people who are learning. But if you already have stuff that works, you got to be careful with it because there are a lot of keyboard jockeys in the community, and some of the information isn't good, and even some of the people teaching are not legit. So
Yeah.
I try to stick with the stuff that I learned way back when I was building my game, and just kind of keep everything out besides for that.
That's great. And you're not a big fan of having your photos published, right? I know you kind of want to keep that private more so than other quote unquote gurus.
Yeah, it just makes it easier. Like if I'm out teaching workshops, I actually teach in the field quite a bit. I teach one-on-ones and workshops, and I have a thing called Pickup Mansion here in LA where guys move into a house and they learn from me and all my coaches. So since I'm out in the field a lot, it's just easier for me to operate if people don't know what I look like and I'm not really getting recognized. So it's a lot cooler. What do I have to gain by putting my picture on the internet? I'm not that great looking of a guy, and all I'm going to do is get myself recognized in the field, which is just annoying generally.
Yeah, I think some people would disagree with that, the not look good looking part, but there's certain bad things about fame. I'm sure that are not so good that comes with the territory.
Yeah, I mean, being famous is really not what I'm in it for. I love meeting the girls, and I love helping other people succeed. I'm interested in the self-help. I'm interested in the education aspect of it. I'm interested in the philosophy and all breaking new ground and stuff like that. But the fame aspect is a little less appealing to me. I like to stay humble and stay behind the curtain, as they say.
Totally. Tell us a little bit. I think our readers are a little bit curious about the. You have a mansion project. I think the only other company that has that is Love Systems. They have the Project Rockstar, right? And actually, PUA Training has a residency program as well. What? Tell me about that experience when guys move to LA to kind of live with you and your coaches for a week. What's that like?
Well, it's actually, maybe it's different than what you're imagining, because my Pickup Mansion is not a week-long program. It's actually a 12-month program. Um, so, me and some of my guys in New York, like Glenn, me and Glenn were teaching these weekend workshops for years and years, and we used to see guys come in and we'd do their workshop, and they would be killing it. They would be taking numbers and getting laid in some cases, and they would come back 6 months later, and then they would kind of like not have practiced too much. So, we were like, wow, what if those guys were practicing that whole 6 months? They could be so good if they just would put in some consistent effort. Because what happens to a lot of guys who take workshops, the workshop can be great. For a lot of people, it's just a springboard and they get huge success. But for other guys, they learn a lot and then they don't practice, and they kind of like forget what they learned, and then they kind of take another one, and they may, maybe a few things will stick, but they're kind of like always moving forwards, then backwards, and forwards and backwards. So we had this idea, if we could put guys in a house for a full year where all their roommates were going out and sarging, and the coaches were teaching them a lot, they would never move backwards, because they would be in an environment that would cause them to constantly be going out and constantly be learning and constantly have good support from their roommates. So we thought that would increase the results exponentially. So that's what we tried to do. So we put these guys in the house, and sure enough, I mean, the rate of improvement is just amazing. Like, these guys are just blasting off, and they're just having a great time too. I mean, they're living in a really cool house and in a really cool area of Hollywood, and they come in for 12 months, so they form like really good bonds with their friends who live in the house and with me and the coaches. And one thing that I've always thought is that long-term training is superior to anything that's like short-term. So like my 30-30 club, where people kind of learn at home, that's 12 months. Pickup Mansion is 12 months. I think you need to put in a solid 12 months of one program with no distractions in order to get good at this. And a lot of people in the community really don't. They take a workshop here, workshop there. They're mixing different methods. They jump from guru to guru, and that stuff, in my opinion, really slows down your learning. So I prefer to teach people who are just going to take my stuff, stick with it, and practice it all the time. And that's what I've found gets the best results and the least amount of confusion in the student. Because a lot of students are, confusing themselves by mixing different methods, and they're just ending up with, a big mess of information in their head.
That's great. How do you get guys to spend 12 months in a mansion? I mean, that's tough. You have to quit your job or leave school, right?
Well, it's not for everyone. And for sure, I mean, 30/30 Club is something that guys can do, which is a similar curriculum, and they can do it from their hometown. But Pickup Mansion is for the absolute most serious students. And if somebody is really, truly serious about wanting to succeed, they're going to do anything to make it happen. We